Gotcha. Do you recognize anything? Because now NPR said this was the picture from 1983. But Gallery says this is the picture from 1915. July 2nd, 1915, dynamite attack. Frank Holt, a professor at Cornell, was suspected of smuggling 3 sticks of dynamite in a suitcase into the Capitol on July 2nd, 1915. The bombs went off in the Senate reception area hours later, causing damage. No kidding. Holt was also suspected of sending a letter to the U.S. newspaper under the moniker R. Pierce, expressing opposition to the U.S. selling arms and munitions to Germany's enemies as World War I progressed. It turned out that the suspect was neither Holt nor Pierce, but Erich Meunter, who is one and the same. We'll find out later, but I've already, spoiler alert. Erich Meunter is also Frank Holt. If you look at one source, well, 2 sources. Erich Meunter was a German who was a Harvard professor suspected of poisoning his wife in 1906. Such a nice man you are, Mr. Meunter. He fled to Mexico and returned with an alias. Meunter was arrested and died in prison on July 6, 1915, following a fall, which is 4 days after the dynamite attack. It was ruled a suicide. This is Mr. Holt, who goes by the moniker R. Pierce, who also is Erich Meunter. This is after he was arrested. CBS also had this little blurb. 3 sticks of dynamite, July 2nd, 1915. Newspaper headlines across the U.S. blared the frenzied attack of a suspect identified as a professor at Cornell University, Frank Holt, described by the New York Times as an educator with a reputation among his associates as being an easygoing man. Now, isn't that always the way they go? Well, he was just such a nice person, we just never thought nothing of it. Alright. The suspect had smuggled 3 sticks of dynamite in a suitcase into the Capitol on July 2nd, 1915. Finding the Senate chambers locked, he settled on the area in the Senate reception area. The bomb went off hours later, causing damage. Again, are you kidding? You mean bombs going off, dynamite going boom, 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 because there's 3 of them, causes damage? Surely you just take this with a grain of salt because it's from Wikipedia. The attacker had sent a letter to Washington paper under the moniker R. Pierce, expressing opposition to the U.S. selling arms and munitions to Germany's enemies as the First World War progressed. The day after the D.C. attack, the same suspect proceeded to the Long Island home of the financier J.P. Morgan Jr., who was pegged as a war profiteer, injuring him with 2 shots before being subdued by Morgan's butler. Turned out the man was neither Holt nor Pierce, but Erich Meunter, a German who was a Harvard professor suspected of poisoning his wife in 1906 and had fled to Mexico and returned with an alias, which is status quo. Now we're just getting Mockingbird. These were among the events detailed in the 2014 book by Howard Bloom, Dark Invasion, 1915, Germany's Secret War and the Hunt for the First Terrorist Cell in America. Meunter was dead by July 6, 1915, killed in a fall in prison. It was ruled a suicide. We still going with the fall and still saying suicide. Erich Meunter, also known as Erich Meunter, Erich Meunter, Erich Holt, and Frank Holt, was a German-American activist and would-be assassin. Although employed as a German professor at elite American universities, he was actually a spy and a fanatic in the clandestine service of the Imperial German government. While an instructor at Harvard, he poisoned and killed his pregnant wife. Well, that's the first time we've heard she was pregnant. But this is Wikipedia, so take that with a grain of salt. He appeared again as Cornell University professor Frank Holt, who contacted the German spy network which undertook to sabotage U.S. aid to the war in Europe against Germany. That's kind of treasonous there, Mr. Holt. Just saying, that's kind of treasonous. A little bit of sedition going on there with you, Mr. Holt. Directly interfering with our military there, Mr. Holt. In 1915, he planted a bomb which exploded in the U.S. Capitol. Shot Jack Morgan, son of financier J.P. Morgan, in his home, that was probably your intended target, and predicted the bombing of the steamship bound for England before committing suicide while in police custody. Okay. Mr. Holt, if you had shot J.P. Morgan, you could have changed some serious things in history. Considering J.P. Morgan is accredited with giving money for us to get us out of the Depression, which I don't see any millionaires doing, billionaires doing that now, but that is the story. Could have changed history seriously there. His activities and those of other Germans were played up by the press as Hun Barbarity. I've never heard that expression. Anti-German feelings rose in the years as America eventually entered the war with Germany. This is World War I. Yeah, we were over in Europe, I guess so. I don't know enough about World War I. I know it was started because Francis Ferdinand got shot. That's one of the reasons. There are several others. Hun Barbarity has to do with propaganda, obviously. It also has to do with the helmet that they wore, which I'm probably going to slaughter how I say it. Pickelhub. Apparently that's right, according to the internet. Take it with a grain of salt, because the internet is not print, and the internet can be edited. Like I said, that last part all came from Wikipedia, so take that with a grain of salt, because if you have an account with Wikipedia, you can edit it. So that's what that is. We're going to look at Mr. Holt and see if he really did try to kill Jack Morgan. We're going to start with Jack Morgan. Thank you for watching. On to the next attack after we look up Mr. Holt. But y'all remember, the internet is not necessarily valid because, oh wait, the picture is from 1915 and yet NPR had it as 1983. Don't forget that. Thanks for watching.